Good morning. Today we are going to check the two problems that are posted in Google Classroom. I posted them yesterday afternoon. It didn't have any instructions to turn in or a spot for you to write your answers. These were for you to practice in your notes. So if you have not done them, at least, and if you're like, I have no idea how to do it, the thing that you at least know how to do is try and identify the givens. So pause the video and try and solve the two problems and then come back to the video. All right. So I'm going to do problem one from yesterday. And problem one stated to find the orbital period of Venus in Earth days. Okay. So step one is to list the givens. And I usually start by listing the two periods. Oops, it's definitely not a V. All right, so I'm listing the two periods, V for Venus, E for Earth, radius of Venus, and radius of Earth. Okay. So it says to find the period of Venus. So I'm going to put a question mark because that's what we're looking for. The time that it takes Earth to rotate is days. So that's 365 days. For the R sub V, you have to look at the third column in the book because we're comparing their rotation from the sun. So it's 1.08 times 10 to the 11th meter. You don't really need to put the label meter. And remember that scientific notation goes in parentheses. Maybe some of you are starting to, get some of these numbers drilled into your head. The distance that the Earth is 1.5 times 10 to the 11th. So it doesn't look that different, but these are, powers of when you're comparing to the 11th power, you're comparing something that is, gosh, how far is that? Over a million. So it's over a million meters longer. It's probably more than that. All right, so here we go. What you're solving for goes up top. So I'm going to put T sub V up top. T sub E on the bottom. The period is always squared. And since Venus went up top, that's what we're solving for. I'm going to put its radius up top. All right, so the variables have to be on the same side or same, up or down, same numerator, same denominator. So these are up top because that's what we're solving for, and E's are at the bottom because we have both of those givens. All right, now we're going to plug some of these numbers in. I'm going to plug in T sub V as my variable over Earth days. This quantity is squared. It's equal to, put a parenthesis around Venus, close the parenthesis, divided by the Earth's radius, or the Earth's distance from the sun. That side is cubed. Okay, so parentheses are your friend. Doing these problems slowly and making sure that you're not, transcribing the numbers incorrectly is your friend as well. Now, in order to solve for the variable, it's stuck inside the parenthesis. So to get the variable out, I have to distribute the square to the top and the bottom. All right, and by distributing that square, now I can move things around. All right, and we have this whole chunk of a side over here. And that quantity is cubed. All right. For some of you, the most challenging part is probably plugging this into your calculator. You just have to not rush when you do it, because rushing, you're going to forget parentheses, you're going to forget squares and cubes and exponents and things like that. All right, so if I'm solving for t sub v, I need to isolate it. So I need to move this over. So if it's being divided, I need to multiply. Make sure that you bring that square with you. A lot of people forget that. Okay, now that I have that, I have t sub v, that quantity squared, equals this whole radius thing times 365 squared. All right, here's where you're going to plug it into your calculator. All right, so I type in a big parenthesis, or not, I shouldn't say big, I type in one parenthesis. Then I type in another parenthesis. 1.08 times 10 to the 11th. Remember, I used the little 10 caret 11, or yours might prompt you to do that anyway, and I close my parenthesis. Then I hit the division sign. Then I put in one parenthesis here. 1.5 times 10 to the 11th. Close this parenthesis. Close this parenthesis to the third power. Now at this point, you might want to hit enter. And then I type in times 365 squared. So if I do this in two chunks, if I type this in, I got 0.373248 times 365 squared. It's a times sign. There you go. All right. And so when I do that, I get t sub v squared equals 49725.9648. And then the very last step, we're almost done. Square root, square root. So you can just type in square root of your answer. And so it takes Venus, if we round it to a whole number, 223 Earth days. So it takes Venus less than a year to rotate around the Earth, or rotate around the sun, sorry. All right, so what I did typing it in is I typed in this whole thing, and then I hit enter, and that's how I got this value down here. And then I did times 365 squared. You can square this earlier in the problem. Like if you're finding that you're forgetting to bring the square with you, if you're forgetting that you're bringing the square with you, square in the beginning. All right, so that was example 1. Example 2. Now we're talking about an unknown planet, and they give you all the information for this unknown planet. So I'm going to use T sub u for unknown. They want to know its orbital period, but they're comparing that orbital period in Earth years. So now this is where we switch to 1 year. The radius of this new unknown planet is let's see, 1.9 times 10 to the 11th. And the Earth, that value never changes. Okay. So if you need to do this problem, if you feel confident after the other one, go ahead and pause the video and then try to attempt the problem, unpause it, and then listen to the solution. Okay? Without numbers, here we go, T sub u over T sub e, quantity squared, equals, what I'm looking for goes up top, so it's my R sub u. It's quantity cubed. Okay. Plug in. T sub u over 1 year squared equals this mess in parentheses. Parentheses are your friend. Okay. And so I plugged everything in, and now in order to solve for the variable, I can't solve for it yet because it's stuck inside the parenthesis. So I have to distribute the square. So I have T sub u squared. And I'm not going to do anything with the 1 because 1 squared is 1. Division by 1 is just that number. Multiplication by 1. So at this point, what makes it nice if you're dealing with 1 is you can kind of just forget about it. I know that's not a very, teacher-like or mathematical thing to say, but you can just forget about it. All right, I'm writing all of this down again. Remembering all my parentheses and exponents. Okay. So at this point, I don't have to move anything over on this side over here because the variable is already isolated. So what I do have to do is I have to plug in this right side. So when I plug it in, I'm going to do parenthesis, 1.9 times 10 to the 11th, close the parenthesis, division sign, parenthesis, 1.5 times 10 to the 11th, close this to the third power. So I just use the little caret 3 after the parenthesis and hit enter. All right, I'm going to plug it in one more time because I don't know if that looks right. 1.9 times 10 to the 11th, close, divided. 1.5 times 10 to the 11th, parenthesis to the third power. Okay. So I have T sub u for the unknown planet squared is equal to 2.032296296. I bet that repeats. Then to get your final answer, don't forget to take the square root. And give me this one in a 1 decimal. So T sub u is equal to 1.4 years. All right, so typically when you're solving these problems, if your answer is in days, you give it in a whole number. If you're calculating your answer in years, you're going to give me 1 decimal in your answer, okay? Your homework is going to be to complete the worksheet that's going to be up on the Google Doc, and follow the instructions, and you need to also upload a picture of your work to that document, all right? So try to submit things when I give you a space to submit them. My inbox is getting a little crazy, so if I don't respond to you, if you've emailed me and I don't respond, just shoot me another email or message me through Classroom. So you're going to have to attach a picture of your work because I want to be able to give you feedback if you're not getting the problems right. Okay? So that is our lesson for today, and I'll check in with you tomorrow.